So America needs you, and our democracy needs you. We need you to establish a baseline of facts and evidence that we can use as a starting. Point for the kind of reasoned and informed debates that ultimately lead to progress. And so my hope is that you will continue with the same tenacity that you showed us to do the hard work of getting to the bottom of stories and getting them right. And to push those of us in power to be the best version of ourselves. And to push this country to be the best version of itself. I have no doubt that you will do so. I'm looking forward to being an active consumer of your work rather than always the subject of it. I want to thank you all for your extraordinary service to our democracy. And with that, I will take some questions. And I will start with Jeff Mason, whose term apparently is not up. I thought we'd be going out together, brother, but you got to hang around for a while. Question: I'm staying put. President Obama, Jeff Mason, Reuters. Question: Thank you, sir. Are you concerned, Mr. President, that commuting Chelsea Manning's sentence will send a message? That leaking classified material will not generate a tough sentence to groups like WikiLeaks? How do you reconcile that in light of WikiLeaks' connection to Russia's hacking in last year's election? And related to that, Julian Assange has now offered to come to the United States. Are you seeking that? And would he be charged or arrested if he came here? President Obama, well, first of all, let's be clear, Chelsea Manning has served a tough prison sentence. So the notion that the average person who was thinking about disclosing vital classified information would think that it goes unpunished, I don't think. Would get that impression from the sentence that Chelsea Manning has served. It has been my view that given she went to trial, that due process was carried out. That she took responsibility for her crime, that the sentence that she received was very disproportional. Disproportionate relative to what other leakers had received. And that she had served a significant amount of time, that it made it sense to commute and not pardon her sentence. And I feel very comfortable that justice has been served and that a message has still been sent that when it comes to our national security, that wherever possible, we need folks who may have legitimate concerns about the actions of government or their superiors or the agencies in which they work that they try to work through. The established channels and avail themselves of the whistleblower protections that had been put in place. I recognize that there's some folks who think they're not enough, and I think all of us when we're working in big institutions, may find ourselves at times at odds with policies that are set. But when it comes to national security, we're often dealing with people in the field whose lives may be put at risk. Or the safety and security and the ability of our military or our intelligence teams or embassies to function effectively. And that has to be kept in mind. So with respect to WikiLeaks, I don't see a contradiction. First of all, I haven't commented on WikiLeaks, generally. The conclusions of the intelligence community with respect to the Russian hacking were not conclusive as to whether WikiLeaks was witting or not in being the conduit through which we heard about the DNC emails that were leaked. I don't pay a lot of attention to MR. Assange's tweets, so that wasn't a consideration in this instance. And I'd refer you to the Justice Department for any criminal investigations. Indictments, extradition issues that may come up with him. What I can say broadly is that, in this new cyber age, we're going to have to make sure that we continually work to find the right balance of accountability and openness and transparency that is the hallmark of our democracy. But also recognize that there are adversaries and bad actors out there who want to use that same openness in ways that hurt us, whether that's in trying to commit financial crimes, or trying to commit acts of terrorism, or folks who want to interfere with our elections. And we're going to have to continually build the kind of architecture that makes sure the best of our democracy is preserved. That our national security and intelligence agencies have the ability to carry out policy without advertising to our adversaries what it is that we're doing. But do so in a way that still keeps citizens up to speed on what their government is doing on their behalf. But with respect to Chelsea Manning, I looked at the particulars of this case the same. Way I have for the other commutations and pardons that I've done. And I felt that in light of all the circumstances that commuting her sentence was entirely appropriate. Margaret Brennan. Question, Mr. President, thank you. The President-elect has said that he would consider lifting sanctions on Russia if they substantially reduce their nuclear stockpile. Given your own efforts at arms control, do you think that's an effective strategy? Knowing this office and Mr. Trump, how would you advise his advisors to help him be effective when he deals with Vladimir Putin? And given your actions recently on Russia, do you think those sanctions should be viewed as leverage? President Obama, well, a couple of things. Number 1, I think it is in America's interest and the world's. Interest that we have a constructive relationship with Russia. That's been my approach throughout my presidency. Where our interests have overlapped, we've worked together. At the beginning of my term, I did what I could to encourage Russia to be a constructive member of the international community. And tried to work with the President and the government of Russia in helping them diversify their economy. Improve their economy, use the incredible talents of the Russian people in more constructive ways. I think it's fair to say that after President Putin came back into the presidency that an escalating anti-American rhetoric and an approach to global affairs that seemed to be premised on the idea that whatever America is trying to do must be bad for Russia, and so we want to try and counteract whatever they do that return. To an adversarial spirit that I think existed during the Cold War has made the relationship more difficult. and it was hammered home when Russia went into Crimea and portions of Ukraine. The reason we imposed the sanctions, recall, was not because of nuclear weapons issues. It was because the independence and sovereignty of a country. Ukraine, had been encroached upon, by force, by Russia. That wasn't our judgment, that was the judgment of the entire international community. And Russia continues to occupy Ukrainian territory and meddle in Ukrainian affairs and support military surrogates who have violated basic international law and international norms. What I've said to the Russians is, as soon as you've stopped doing that, the sanctions will be removed. And I think it would probably best serve not only American interest but also the interest of preserving international norms if we made sure that we don't. Confuse why these sanctions have been imposed with a whole set of other issues. On nuclear issues, in my first term we negotiated the START II treaty. And that has substantially reduced our nuclear stockpiles. Both Russia and the United States. I was prepared to go further. I told President Putin I was prepared to go further. They have been unwilling to negotiate. If President-elect Trump is able to restart those talks in a serious way, I think there remains a lot of room for our two countries to reduce our stockpiles. And part of the reason we've been successful on our non-proliferation agenda. And on our nuclear security agenda is because we were leading by example. I hope that continues. But I think it's important just to remember that the reason sanctions have been put in place against Russia has to do with their actions in Ukraine. And it is important for the United States to stand up for the basic principle that big countries don't go around and invade and bully smaller countries. I've said before, I expect Russia and Ukraine to have a strong relationship. They are, historically, bound together in all sorts of cultural and social ways. But Ukraine is an independent country. And this is a good example of the vital role that America has to continue to play around. The world in preserving basic norms and values, whether it's advocating on behalf of human rights, advocating on behalf of women's rights, advocating on behalf of freedom of the press. The United States has not always been perfect in this regard. There are times where we by necessity, are dealing with allies or friends or partners who, themselves, are not meeting the standards that we would like to see met when it comes to international rules and norms. But I can tell you that in every multilateral setting in the United Nations, in the G20, in the G7, the United States typically has been on the right side of these issues. And it is important for us to continue to be on the right side of these issues, because if we the largest, strongest country and democracy in the world, are not willing to stand up on behalf of these values, then certainly China, Russia, and others will not.